Hey everybody, how are you all doing? Let's just wait for people to jump on. Please let me know how you're doing in the chat. Let me know what part of the training has really stuck out for you so far. What is the thing that really got you thinking? Did you find value in it? And who's thinking of jumping into the 5-month program? Hi, Winnie. Hi, Robert. Okay. Just make sure everybody's getting in who wants to get in. Hi, Heather. Hi, Sue in Holland or Netherlands. Jen is saying it's been very valuable even for someone sober many years. Thank you. Good. Yeah, it doesn't really matter where you are. This stuff is it can be applied to your life. There's always more. Like we never stop growing and learning, and that's actually what we're going to be talking about today is growth. Yeah, Izzy, fixed mindset, growth mindset, really helpful. I've been watching the untrue stories that I tell myself, so many. Well, Maria, well done, here every day this week. Michelle from Yorkshire. Oh, Nancy's been watching all of our previous videos as well. Okay, good to see so many of you here. So today we are going to be talking about how to get a sober mindset. For those of you, few of you asked just some of the books that I use. And I'll post a photo of this in the Facebook group, but I'm going to tell you the two that are my kind of number one ones, and they're on the reading list for this program, are these two. Mindset by Carol Dweck. Is she Stanford? I feel like she's Stanford. And Gay Hendricks, pretty certain he is Stanford. So this is what some of the stuff that I've drawn this stuff from, but I just shape it to fit sobriety. So it's all based on really good research. This is another good one. I use this in my book, Personality is Not Permanent. That's a good one as well. And I'll post a photo of those on my Instagram account and Facebook. So if you want to get any of those, and then obviously get that one, because I all of this stuff I kind of thread through here. It's particularly it talks about the 5 pillars of sobriety, and particularly pillar 4 and 5, process and growth, is a lot of the stuff that I've been talking about over these 5 days. 5 for 5. Toddy, yeah, Soberful is my Bible. Oh, thank you. So there is a bonus Q&A session on Tuesday. So for those of you who just have questions about this, and questions about how to apply it to their lives, or questions about the 5-month program, then come along on Tuesday and I'll answer as many questions as possible. I'll also put a post in Facebook so you can put questions there too. So today we're going to learn about how and why you're being called to grow, how resistance will always show up. Yes, Heather, same time, same place, same link. And how to break free of upper limits and self-sabotage that hold back your growth. Does everybody know what I mean by self-sabotage? Self-sabotage is when we set a goal or we want to do something, and it feels very aligned and very truthful for us to want to do this thing. And then we set off doing it and we sabotage that it doesn't work out. And we may not see that at the time that we sabotaged it, but we talk ourselves out of it. We act ourselves out of it. You know, a very classic act of self-sabotage is when we have a big important thing, really important, really matters to us, lots of planning, lots of effort, lots of energy went into it, and we get drunk. I have heard this story. A friend of mine, she was opening a restaurant. So much time, money, and effort went into it. And she went out. I think it was when the day the restaurant opened at the leaving party, and got so drunk, and she got herself arrested and had to call up her business partners to come and bail her out, which kind of sabotaged then the whole thing. They didn't have any confidence in her, blah, blah, blah. So that's what self-sabotage is. Does everybody understand what self-sabotage is? Is really when we can look back, we can see we talked our way out of it, or we, like, often we drink, but sometimes we set up a whole chain of circumstances that means the thing doesn't work out. And what we're doing is just running a pattern. We're running a program. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So sometimes this training will be uncomfortable. It will reveal things that you know are true, but they feel difficult. So discomfort is part of growth. It's part of the process. So the reason that you are here today watching this either live or the recording, I know lots of people are watching the recording, is because you were called to grow. The reason that you are here is something is inside of you calling you to grow, to be more than you are now. And that is a normal and natural process that is part of being human. Growth is the universal law of life. If you look around, you will see that everything is either growing or dying. When I was drinking, I was dying on the inside. I looked on the outside, I looked like a regular person. I had a job, I paid my bills, I went to college, etc., etc. But I was dying on the inside. My soul just felt like it was being crushed. Does everybody know, has everyone felt a similar feeling to that? So if you look at nature, at people, at businesses, at communities, at anything, it is either growing or dying. So the reason, as long as we're still breathing, we are being called to grow. So part of growth means that we're going to feel uncomfortable, because the whole definition of growth is we are growing into a new thing, right? I mean, look at kids, for example. Their whole lives are about growing into a new thing. I have an 11-year-old son, and we are just beginning to learn about puberty. That is a whole world of which he knows nothing about, or very little, that he's going to grow into. You know, the whole, and that we know that about kids, but it never stops as adults. We're never fixed. Being fixed and in one place without growth is just, it's death. There's no, we are just, as long as you're breathing, you're being called to grow. So the challenge is, when we are being called to grow, growth is a wonderful thing, but it's also frightening. And we are also going to experience resistance. And if we don't know how to navigate around that fear and resistance, what happens is we get stuck in a holding pattern, right? This call to growth happens and we're like, oh yeah, I really would like to do that or be that, or I want that, but oh no, it's really scary, I can't do it. So we just stay in this holding pattern. The call to growth never goes away. We'll sabotage, or we'll back off and go, oh, no, I don't know, I'm not ready. It's the wrong time. I can't afford it. I haven't got enough time. But it just comes around again. We just get the call to growth again. And then we just keep hitting this what we call an upper limit. So I want to talk you through this process and break it down for you, so you know what happens when you are called to grow and why we keep getting defeated. What happens is we all have upper limits. Upper limits are rooted in our belief systems, our limiting beliefs, which we learned about yesterday. And we all have belief systems about how successful we're allowed to be, how much money we're allowed to make, what is possible for us. And so we get this call to growth that, oh, wow, I'd really like to do that. So off we go And then it hits our limiting belief of, but you're not good enough. Sorry, not good enough. Oh, and then we back off and sabotage ourselves. But that call to growth, that thing, does this make sense to everybody? Is this making sense? Okay, good. So all of us have an ego voice. It is the voice in your head. You're not crazy. We all have it. We are all narrating our own lives, right? And it's quite mundane. What am I going to have for lunch? Should I have that? Is the laundry done? Do I need to pick this up? Blah, blah, blah. The primary purpose of this voice, the ego, is to keep you safe. And it's done a pretty good job of that because you're all here. So you'll hear that voice, for instance, if you're standing on the, on the edge of a busy road and trucks are thundering past, that voice in your head will be like, oh, you need to get back, right? That voice was really going off for me when I learned to ski 2 years ago, which if you've ever learned to ski as a middle-aged person is absolutely bloody terrifying. And that voice in my head was going, you can't do this, you can't do this, you're going to break your legs, you're going to break everything, you can't do this. And I really wanted to learn how to do it. So I did it. I managed to navigate around that voice. And now I can ski very amateurly. I mean, the things that voice in my head was screaming about when I first learned to ski, I mean, literally going down a 20-meter slope like that, I can do quite easily. I'm not at the top of the mountain yet. And every time, this is actually a really good metaphor, every time I kind of conquer one bit of skiing and then I'm like, oh, yeah, I can do this. I'm relaxed, I can do it. And then I challenge myself and the slopes are a bit, and that voice goes, oh, you can't do this. And at some point with skiing, I'm definitely going to hit my limit for sure, but I'm just enjoying it and I'm going a bit further. But that's a really good metaphor about how growth is, right? We do one thing and that voice goes, you can't do it, you're going to fail. And we manage to kind of push through that limit. And then that new thing just becomes our new normal and it just becomes easy. So that's how the voice of the ego works. It's that voice in your head. And every time you get this call to growth and you hit this limit, this is what's going to happen. So let me explain. So this is in your workbooks. You may want to write this down. The ego's job is to keep you safe by keeping everything in the familiar. So this is the conflict. This is the tension. You have a call to grow. Your ego wants to keep you safe. So the ego doesn't want anything to change. It wants to keep you in the familiar because it believes familiar. We know how to do this. We just know how to do it. Then you'll be safe. So the best example of this, and because you've probably all experienced this, is when you've tried to stop drinking, right? You've all woken up one day and gone, oh my God, that's it. I'm never drinking again. I'm done. I want to put that behind me. I want to be sober, right? Has everybody done that? And remember, you are making that decision and that promise and that commitment to yourself with your rational conscious mind, which is 5% of what is, your conscious mind is responsible for 5% of what happens in your day. So off you go. You might tell a friend, you might listen to some podcasts, you might buy a book, you might attend a program like this, go to some meetings, whatever. And maybe you're a few days sober, maybe you get to a few weeks sober, and off you're going towards this new thing, which is the land of sobriety, which is not drinking alcohol for the rest of your life. And you have never been to this land of not drinking for the rest of your life. You've maybe been sober for a few days, weeks, or a month, put your feet into it, but you have never lived and navigated your whole life being sober. And that is a very new thing. So what happens is off you go, and then you hit your upper limit. You begin to hit resistance. And that is when the ego voice gets going. And when you hit resistance, it will always feel uncomfortable and a bit frightening. So you've maybe, let's say you've been sober for 2 weeks and feel so much better, not being hungover, a bit more energy, starting to feel clearer. Off you go, you've listened to a few books, podcasts, blah, blah, blah. And then it just feels a bit uncomfortable. and there's a big, big party up next weekend. And that voice in your head is saying, you're not that bad. You're not like, that friend we have who lives down the road. She's really bad. She really has a bad drink. You're not, it's not like you're getting arrested. You don't even drink every day. Is it really that bad? You could probably just manage 2 drinks, not spirits, just stick to wine or beer. Yeah, I think you'd be fine with 2 drinks. So you've made this commitment to yourself 2 weeks ago with the consciousness of your head, but your ego is kicking in. It feels really uncomfortable, and you're starting to be like, that sounds perfectly reasonable. 2 drinks sounds perfectly reasonable. Everybody else is having a drink or 2 and they're absolutely fine. Who has done this, by the way? Who recognizes this? And then it starts to feel really uncomfortable, because there's kind of a deeper part of you that's like, I really don't want to go back to the horribleness of drinking. But 2 drinks just sounds perfectly reasonable. And then you're having this real tension with yourself. And that's when you're trying to stay sober on willpower, which doesn't work, because that's in your rational mind, 5%. The ego, all it wants to do is keep you in the familiar. And the familiar may be crappy, but it's warm and familiar crap. So you're trying to stay sober. You're like, I'm going to just white knuckle it through. I'm just going to get through that event. And the voice in your head is going, but you're not that bad. You could just probably manage 2 and you'll be fine. Everyone else is fine. And that just feels so uncomfortable that eventually you make the decision, you know what? It's been 3 weeks. I think I can have 1 glass of wine at my friend's birthday. What is the big deal, right? You will feel release and ease as soon as you've made the decision, before you've even drank. And then you go to your friend's birthday and you have a drink, and the same thing happens that always happens. Maybe not that night, but very soon. And you wake up with that terrible hangover and the shame and the regret. Why am I in this place again? And the whole thing starts again. Who has done that, and who has done that more than once? Yeah. Yep. Yeah. That's hard work, right? Do you remember when we did the section on getting sober is not hard, it requires effort? That whole process is really, really hard work. That takes up a lot of energy, people. So we go through this process with everything. We go through this process with when we start a new job, when we go to start a college course, when we start a new thing. Every job I've ever had, I've kind of seen the job and been like, ooh, cool, I'd like to do that. Oh, that would be really amazing. More money, more responsibility, and I apply for the job, and I usually get it because I'm really good at interviews. I would get the job, and for a second I'd be like, oh, amazing. And then I'd be like, oh crap. Oh my God, I don't know how I'm going to do that. It doesn't make sense. And like the day before starting, I wouldn't sleep. I'd start my new job. Nothing makes sense. I don't know where anything is. I don't know what language these people are talking. Inside I'm going, yes. And inside I'm going, like they're gonna realize I'm an idiot. They realize they made a mistake, that I tricked them. That who's been through that experience when they've started a new job? Now, if I asked you to go back and do whatever was your last job, you'd be able to do it because you know it. It's familiar. You know how to do it, right? But when we start a new thing, we're going through that resistance, and somehow we somehow find a way to push through that upper limit to do the job, because money is a really good motivator. And I used to use alcohol to just manage the fear of the first few weeks, to be able to, and then it just becomes familiar and we're able to do it. Am I making sense to everybody? I remember this happened to me. So I talked to you about my dyslexia and education. So a few years ago, I was starting a college course, and my children were still very little. I'd been a stay-at-home mom, and I wanted to do this college course. It was around addiction, And my husband worked at university, so it was also free. So I started it, and the first class I was like overwhelmed with the requirements and the papers I had to write. And I came home and I cried to my husband and said, I can't do it. It's too soon. I think maybe my youngest son was still nursing. Like, I can't do it. What was I thinking? It's the wrong time, blah, blah, blah. And I completely was like, I can't do it. I'm going to quit. I'll try again in a couple of years when my kids are older. And because he knows me, I had forgotten about this. I had forgotten. He said to me, why don't you just do the first month? And then if you still feel the same way, drop out and you can do it again. He gave me a way to navigate around that, because I thought, oh, okay, I can do that. I can just do the next 3 classes, and then, you know, I'll probably still feel the same way and I can just leave. That just felt. So I went along and I did that month, and then it started to kind of be interesting and make sense and feel possible for me, and I completed it. So previously, when I start any kind of education, this really comes up for me because of my dyslexia. I'm really, the fear of looking stupid, making mistakes, blah, blah, blah. And because I'm aware of this pattern, I'm able to navigate myself around it. It's okay, Veronica, it's really normal to feel like overwhelmed and confused in the first couple of weeks. If you knew everything, you'd be teaching it. As a student, the whole point is to not know and to learn and grow through the program. But I'd forgotten all that. Luckily, my husband reminded me. That what's happening is that is just the process of getting through and around upper limits. That's all it is. It's upper limit stuff. And so what I'm saying is, all of you in the past, you've all done it. You've all got through tons of upper limits. If you hadn't, you would still be at home with your mothers. You've all done things that are really, really frightening and felt really, really impossible, but somehow, and often we do it, you know, like we often use alcohol to manage the fear, right? Who's used alcohol to manage the fear? So Kate's saying the idea is to use a motivator to push through our upper limit. Not necessarily. The first thing is to know what's happening. So the example I gave you when I went back to the college and my husband helped me, I had forgotten. I just succumbed to the fear and the resistance. I had forgotten all the stuff I knew. So first of all is to know this is what's happening. This is growth. I'm being called to grow. So that's why I feel frightened and uncomfortable. I've been here before. And then we navigate around it. And there's different ways that we can navigate around it. That's some of the stuff I teach. But the first thing is just to know what's happening. So this is in your workbooks. It is normal when I am called to grow to feel fear and resistance. It's just normal. It's part of the process. And this never goes away, because you are, and while you have breath in your body, there is always going to be something inside of you calling you to be more than you are now. That's just the natural part of being human. It's delicious. It's wonderful. We're always going to have that push-pull. Who has recognized how they sabotage themselves in that whole process? You know, I do feel that we are very culturally conditioned, and particularly about marketing, that we are told that we should never feel uncomfortable. And if you do, that we need to take that needs to be taken away from you as quickly as possible. Discomfort is part of being human, but definitely part of sobriety and the recovery process is learning to be comfortable with discomfort. Discomfort is a gift. It means something is working. You know, just look at kids, how they learn and the discomfort they go through. I'm seeing that with my kids all of the time. The first, they're learning to ride a bicycle, It's like discomfort, discomfort, and discomfort until it isn't. And then it's then our limits grow. This new thing, this hard new thing just becomes our normal thing. And we don't think about it. We've been through these processes so many times. Yeah, Toddy's saying, I feel that something is wrong when I'm in discomfort. I think that that's one of the messages that we have been culturally conditioned to believe, that there is something wrong with us. It's part of the human experience. And remember, when we're getting this call to grow to this new thing, and we've got this discomfort and fear and resistance, I hear this a lot. People don't, one of the things that keeps people drunk, and again, it's a story you're telling yourself, is fear of failure. Well, I'm not going to try because I'm just going to fail. No, I'm sorry, you're just lying to yourself so you can carry on drinking, because there's no such thing as failure. There is only feedback. So this thing may just have a lot of feedback for me that this isn't my thing, because this thing over here is. And I never would have known that if I hadn't gone to this thing first. And that's how growth often works. There is no such thing as failure. You can't fail. There's just feedback as to what's for you, what's maybe not for you, all of that kind of stuff. So with the right tools, you can navigate around resistance, reduce the fear and discomfort dramatically. And that's a big part of getting around this, is once I know what's happening, my fear and discomfort decreases by about 50%. It doesn't go, but I'm like, oh, okay, right. And it makes it easier to navigate around it. And learning these skills has had one of the biggest impacts in my life. It's the reason that I'm here now. It never ends in what I do, this, this continuous call to growth. So when you begin to change, know this is going to happen, and your ego will do everything it can to keep you from not changing by enticing you back to what is familiar. But you are all here today watching this because you don't want to stay where you are. So, and this is why this work that we've done together over 5 days is so much more than stopping drinking. It's about getting the keys to be free. Understanding how growth works and the resistance to growth is how we prevent self-sabotage. When we are not burning up energy unnecessarily arguing with our ego voice about whether it's okay to drink or not, whether 2 is fine, or blah, blah, blah. All of that eats up bandwidth. So remember, we talked about this, I think, on day 1. When you have a problem with alcohol, you do 4 things. You drink, you think about drinking, you think about not drinking, and you recover from drinking. And that is an indication that you have a problem with alcohol, because all of those 4 things require energy and space in your head, bandwidth. And you are burning up your precious bandwidth over something that is insignificant. But alcohol takes up 20, 30, 40% more bandwidth, and it's just an inanimate object. It has become the main event. You are spending your precious bandwidth arguing with yourself about whether you could have 2 drinks this Saturday night. Does everyone see the insanity of that and how precious your bandwidth is? What could you do with your life if you had that bandwidth back? What magical things could happen? I'll tell you. When you get that bandwidth back, you can grow emotionally. And that is the beauty of our existence. We can't grow emotionally and be the version of ourselves that we are capable of being when we are burning up bandwidth, arguing about whether to have a drink or not. And I just want to tell you, this is my experience of doing this work for over 20 years with people. It's not just when you get that bandwidth back, in that bandwidth is where your extraordinariness is. I've seen it in so many people. Having that bandwidth back, it's the edge to life. It's like a secret. We have access to something magical that other people don't necessarily get to access. How about that? Who would like that, by the way? When we don't have access to our full bandwidth, we can't become all that we are capable of, and we miss the main event. And that's the tragedy. that some of you are not going to listen to your call to growth. You're going to continue believing the story you're telling yourself and go around in this holding pattern. And I want to give you that invitation today to not do that. But alcohol is not the main event, but it becomes the main event because of the amount of energy we give to it. Don't miss the main event, and that's your life and your purpose, which is still unfolding. By the way, check out on the information page about the program, check out Rebecca's testimonial. It's on there. It's a video. It's really, really powerful. They're all good. But she talks about how her father and mother just didn't recognize her. She changed so much. Her mother and a brother. It's in the story. Check out her testimonial. And you saw it in Jen's as well on Wednesday. So let's talk about how to get a sober mindset. And you may want to write this down. Understand that for change to happen, we have to reprogram our subconscious minds. We can't change with using that 5% of our conscious rational minds. Willpower, commitments, promises, they don't work as they're all in our conscious minds. We change our programming by being aware of the story we are telling ourselves. We get it out into the open. We ask ourselves if it's true. One of the stories we've been telling ourselves is that alcohol is the best way to have fun. Is that true? What is the evidence that you have of your life? Is it true? Where did this story come from? One of the greatest tools that I use is, what is the story I'm telling myself about myself? What is the story I'm telling myself about this? I'm telling myself it's not going to work out. I'm going to fail. It's going to be terrible. Ugh. We have to move from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. And that's just a matter of reframing and using different words. So if you saw this in the kind of warm-up videos that I did, a fixed mindset, there's just nowhere to go with that. One of the classic examples of a fixed mindset is using the word should. So if I say, I should have gone to the gym this morning, that's a fixed mindset. Where do I go with that? There's nowhere to go with that. I should have gone to the gym. This is something that happened in my past. I don't have a time machine. I cannot travel back to this morning and go to the gym. When I'm in a fixed mindset of should, I'm just doing this to myself. I'm just making myself feel bad about myself. If I change it to a growth mindset, and again, it's not being Pollyanna or denying reality. What I'm reframing it as is, I would have loved to have gone to the gym this morning, but I was really tired and I needed to sleep later. I'm going to schedule going at the weekend. That's just truth, right? That's just truth. It doesn't change facts, but it's truth and it feels a lot better. That's a growth mindset. Everything feels better in a growth mindset. It feels possible. Changing how we feel about failure and effort. There is no such thing as failure, only feedback. Sobriety takes effort. This takes effort. Exposing our limiting beliefs, getting them out in the open and changing them to empowering ones. Limiting beliefs are lies, empowering beliefs are truth. So for example, I'm not good enough is a classic limiting belief. And we can change that to, I am learning to accept myself as I am, which feels better, right? I'm not saying I'm not good enough doesn't change to I'm the most perfect and amazing person on the planet, because that's ridiculous and your ego voice will definitely reject it. But if I change it to I'm learning to accept myself as I am. And you know what, people? I'm a messy, imperfect human being. I mess up and make mistakes all the time. That doesn't affect my value or my worth. I'm learning to accept myself as I am. See how different that feels. Recognizing upper limits and consciously navigating around them. There's another great book that I love. It's called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. And it's by Susan Jeffers. It's all about this. Feel the fear and do it anyway. So getting sober is going to feel frightening. Living as a sober person is going to feel frightening for a bit, and then it won't. Joining this, the fear, my job is helping people navigate past their fear, a lot of it, to join the program that's right for them. In fact, and one of my people is on the call today. We had I wrapped up a program yesterday with some wonderful ladies, and we were talking about their fear of joining the program and how it is at the end, and how they wish they had known how they were going to feel at the end, and the fear of like joining was such a big thing, but they did it, and they had this amazing life-changing experience. So understand that when resistance fires up, you're being called to grow. So I'm going to give you the homework question in just a second. Please come along on Tuesday to the Q&A session. I'll answer any questions that you have. But if any of this has made sense this week, if you have been triggered to grow, if you know that you are ready to step up into a different experience of life, then I want to invite you to join my 5-month program and take action. It's my flagship program because we really do deeper work. It's transformational work, and it's the necessary internal work all human beings have to do. It's very skill-based. It's not, ooh, we teach you very tangible skills that you can have for the rest of your life. It's not hard, it's manageable, and it will fit in with your life. And there's lots of coaching sessions where we will help you. And most of you have been around me for a while, and you've checked me out, and you know how I work and how I teach and what my vibe is, and that I'm qualified and experienced to deliver this. So that's really important. Don't spend money on anything that someone doesn't at least have a qualification in. I really want to stress this part. We live what we teach. Everything in this program is what I have done and what I do. And I teach 80% of this program. I have support from Tamara, and I've been sober for 22 years, and Tamara's been sober for, God, at least 13, I think. And I make 2 guarantees. I will mess up your drinking because you won't be able to unknow what is revealed to you, and you will experience transformation, because we teach skills that are very cognitive. And this is a program for wherever you are in your sobriety journey. We have people who are still putting weight on the sober end, and people who are a couple of years or more sober. I've had people who have been 20 years. Actually, I've had a woman who's close to, I think, 25 years sober and was very, very stuck. And I have people in their very early days. It will apply to wherever you are on your journey. So there are 6 modules over 5 months. It's in depth. So the modules are, we do work on the subconscious mind, limiting beliefs, fixed to growth mindset. We do the resentment work, and the resentment work we do in 2 retreat days. So we have 2 days where we have a full day retreat online, because that work is really, it takes time and space. Resentment work is the most important work that you can do. We have the weekly coaching calls, and where we are going to help you apply what you're learning. Each module has a video and a handout that goes with it, so you can recap everything. And we have a little private group for everybody, which is in Soberful Life, because you get 6 months free membership to Soberful Life as well. And then when you graduate, if you continue your Soberful Life membership, you can come to alumni calls. And we have twice monthly alumni calls for as long as you want. And I have people come to those calls who've done programs with me 2 or 3 years ago. So we want you to be successful. This isn't you do it and we leave you bye-bye. We want you to be successful, and we want to continue to help you to be successful. So I know not everybody watching this is ready to do it, and it's completely normal to feel scared. How do you tell if you're ready? You will feel uncomfortable. You will be hearing that call to growth, and the ego voice will be kicking in and saying, this is not for you, and you can't afford it, and you don't have enough time, and all that kind of stuff. If you feel that way, book the assessment call, book the next step call with either me or Tamara, and we will give, answer as many questions, give you as much information. If it's not the right fit for you, we can make other suggestions. I'll point you in the right direction of something else. But if you are ready to make the commitment, go ahead and sign up before midnight tonight, because there's a special bonus that you get if you sign up by midnight tonight. It's one of my getting set, I think it's called Getting Set for Success. There's a video and a handout that you'll get if you sign up by tonight. If not, sign up by next Thursday, because we have a live bonus session then, which is one of my favorite things to do. And we've made it really easy for you. If you want to pay in full, if you're that committed to yourself and to change, pay in full is $4,997, just under $5,000, which you've all spent that on alcohol in the last year. Or you can do it 6 payments of $879, whatever feels better for you. There is some bonuses if you want to pay in full. And I just want to say something about the financial commitment, because I know that that's where the biggest resistance comes up. And usually when we tell ourselves, I can't afford it, it's a way to shut down the desire to change. And I want to just reframe that. There's no such thing as I can't afford it. What we have is priorities for our finances. So please understand, I would never advocate that you don't meet your needs or impoverish yourself to pay for a program. But what we often, if we look at how we spend our money, it's often we're trying to buy outside fixes for inside problems. So we spend a lot of money on alcohol, the associated cost, buying things we don't need. So I want you to ask yourself, what is your priority and where could you prioritize your funds? Could it be with me taking you through this process of transformational growth and change? And remember, there are guarantees in this program. You just have to show up. You're going to experience a transformation. There's a couple of particular things that we do that if you do them, it's going to create an internal shift. I want to tell you, when I give away in the past, when I've given away free things, people don't come. They don't show up. We have to activate this commitment and show that we're all in, because when we do that, we show up and we do the work that's necessary to transform. Look at the testimonials, reach out to people who've done the program. But most of all, if you feel scared or just need some reassurance or handholding, just book a call with me. I'm going to put the link in the chat here, but it should be coming out to all your emails. And we have a few minutes, so I can take some questions. So if you have questions, put them in. Yes, the Q&A is exactly the same time with the same link, and you should get a reminder about that. So there is all of the, oh, thank you, Robert. I put it in as well. Toddy's done a couple of my programs. Talk about the yearly burnout. Yes, you get to be part of the Soberful Life community. You get to come to all the alumni calls, all of that kind of stuff. Yeah. Oh, Crystal, so that's a good question. So I'm still having a hard time with the cost, particularly because it's an online program, not direct one-on-one. So Crystal, this is my experience as a therapist, as a psychotherapist. Everybody thinks that one-to-one is more effective than group. My experience is that it isn't. And here's why. We think, well, I'm getting all of that whole time just to myself. What happens in the group process is there's several stages that we go through. What happens is we get very real, and you begin to see, oh my God, what's inside of me is actually also inside of other people. We get to kind of piggyback from other people's learning and growth. The group process, I promise you, is way more powerful than just one-to-one, but there's also an option to do some one-to-ones with me or Tamara if you wanted to add them on. I don't take too many people, I don't have the space, but if you wanted to do some one-to-ones as well, there's a way to do that also. I have people who sit in the group who actually don't say much sometimes, but so much is going on internally. It's always been this way. Group people think one-to-one is more effective. It's not, it's group, because it's the connection and the vulnerability that creates the change. And my groups generally bond quite well. People keep in touch, that kind of stuff. Heather, so I know Heather's done other programs with me. It's very focused on mindset. So often people do several programs with me because we focus on different things. So absolutely, Heather, it's definitely going to be valuable because we're going to really be focusing on making those changes. But you have to come and do the work. I don't have a magic wand. Do we get on the alumni call if we complete the recent 5 pillars training? Elizabeth, no, the reason for that, the only people, alumni calls are for people who've done the coaching programs, and the Sober Mindset is a coaching program. So that's why it's that's because the coaching programs are different, they're much deeper, and the work we do is much deeper. And I've coached you. Okay, homework question. Let me give you the homework question. It is, why does my mindset need to change now? What will happen if it doesn't change? So that's the homework question. Let me put that in the chat for you. And have a little think over the weekend. If you want to, if you 5 days is enough and you know you're in and you have done your due diligence on me, go ahead and sign up before midnight today so you can get that bonus. Otherwise, book a call, make sure you sign up by Thursday. This is my favorite program. I love teaching this program. I love seeing the changes. And also, just so you know, the testimonials that are on the website, we checked in with those people. I actually, when I was in Ireland, I met Sheila in person, and I've known Sheila for a few years. She's done several of my programs. And we went for dinner, and it was just wonderful to see how much had changed and how her husband had told her she had changed. We check in with people because we want this stuff to stick. This is life-changing stuff. So when you consider it, the value and all of that kind of stuff, it will affect your whole life. All right, everybody. Oh, nice to see you live. Nice to see so many of you here live. Thank you so much. It's been a wonderful 5 days. Reach out to me with any questions. And if you can't make it live on Tuesday, let me know your questions ahead of time, and I'll answer them on the call anyway. But if you're live, we can chat. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Yay.